Welcome back for another episode of Manufactured in the Glass City. I'm Brian Blair, your Vice President and Director of Athletics. Really excited for today's conversation. Got a volleyball letter winner, alumni, sports and hospitality industry veteran, Jean Williamson. Jean, thanks for joining us today.
No, thank you. Enjoying this.
So you've done so many incredible things throughout your career. I looked through the list and I'm just fascinated by each stop along your journey. Maybe just give us high level, a little bit of info about your journey and kind of how you landed at each stop.
Sure, absolutely. It started on campus. It started at Toledo. I will tell you. I was a sports marketing major, which really wasn't a major there at the University of Toledo at the time. I was at University College and kind of made up my own degree. So did a little bit of sports management, but also in the business department. But I was an intern at the Mud Hens, and this is back in the day when they were playing in Maumee and they weren't downtown in the beautiful stadium. I had the privilege of being involved with everything from selling tickets to, adding merchandise in the merchandise, facilities before the game, to selling hot dogs to, dealing with the press to faxing box scores, if you can believe it or not. That's what we did back in the day. So, I had the privilege of doing that. And then, still was looking for that internship or that next job when you were a senior, what were you going to do when you graduated? And so this was back when you had to, write a check for your parking fees. So I took it to the bursar's office and it had NASCAR on it. And that's where I wanted to work. I wanted to work in NASCAR racing. I wanted to be a NASCAR marketer. That's what I wanted to do. And I wrote my check, and the woman behind the counter said, "Boy, my son would love this." And I said, "Oh, is he a fan?" She said, "Oh, he's the director of marketing at Michigan International Speedway." So I said, "Oh, can I have his name?" And she gave me his name and number. And, I called, and like I said, the rest is history. I, got an internship with them, and 6 months later, I'm the first sales executive for a Penske organization in their racing division, first female. And my career just started from there. So I really do give everything to the university, and especially that day, going to the bursar's office.
I love that story. We're going to have to explain to our young people. I feel dated sometimes. Talk about a fax machine or even paper checks, and they're like, look at you like you got three heads. But there's a couple of things you said during that journey. I think one, you weren't afraid to create your own path at the university, right? You, at the time you graduated, and even now, not having a sports management major, but you carved out a niche between the sports marketing and the business courses to kind of plow ahead and say, hey, this is what I want to do. I'm going to make a way. I'm going to find a way. I'm certainly being a student athlete, but then transferring that to then experiential learning. And that's something we talk about an awful lot in our department in terms of, I want you to have an amazing athletic experience. I want you to have an amazing academic experience. But I think the secret sauce is on top of that. If we can find a way to get you experiential learning within this vast community that we have, that is all of Toledo and Northwest Ohio, I think you leave here really well prepared to attack any workforce you can imagine.
Yeah, I really felt that when I left Toledo. I think it was an interesting kind of career, and we can kind of get into, the volleyball side of it. But, I came into it, prepared to, play volleyball. That's what I wanted to do. And then, it was a little tumultuous when we were there. We had a coaching change in the middle of my career. The group of women that I came into with, as freshmen, had all left kind of in different capacities. So by the time I was a senior, I was the lowly senior on the team. So, having to, kind of have those leadership skills, with all that, the younger kids coming in and again, going through the coaching changes. But I think that all prepared me for what happens in the business career, right? So, things change, your boss leaves, companies shut down, different things happen with economics that you have to kind of pivot and move all the time. So, I really lean on the experience that I had during my time at Toledo, playing volleyball, because it wasn't just all about the sport. It was about learning all these other skills and how that prepared me moving forward.
We talked a little bit about it, but you've had so many different, really interesting career stops. I mean, what are some of the more interesting stops along your career that you reflect fondly on?
Yeah, I started in NASCAR, so I was in NASCAR on and off for about 20 years. And I was on the track side of it. So I worked at Michigan International Speedway, I worked at Kansas Speedway, and then I finished my career at Daytona International Speedway. And all through that, I was kind of a jack of all trades. I had a lot of hats I wore, did a lot of different jobs. Corporate sales was the first kind of half of my career. I would say the first 10 years, selling sponsorships, selling hospitality, selling group ticket sales, things of that nature. And then really deciding that, my niche was really operations and how things operated and the logistics of how things were prepared and how the kind of that guest experience flow worked and how can we make that better and easier for people. So that's where I kind of moved into the last half of my kind of career, was in the logistics and the operational side. So started that at Kansas and then kind of moved that in Daytona, and then really got into the kind of the construction and really the facility side of the house. So at Daytona, we built a $400 million stadium. We kind of reimagined Daytona International Speedway and really built that into what you would consider what a major league baseball stadium looks like today, but in racing, and was a part of that. And then reimagined their entire guest services. So, at the time they were hiring about 400 people. We upped that to 1,500. So trying to hire, 1,500 seasonal employees and kind of really revamping what that looks like and how to take care of the guest was what was I in charge of. So that was a great career kind of, with that flow. But on and off, I did a couple different things in between all of that. I worked at Sprint Corporate, again, kind of on the NASCAR side, but I was with, the corporation of Sprint, which is now T-Mobile, so that I'm dating myself too. But had the opportunity to work some great events, Super Bowl, men's Final Four basketball, U.S. ski team events, Sundance Film Festival, just doing a whole bunch of different crazy events, which I absolutely loved. And then kind of transitioned out of that sports world and then went to work for NASA. So I was the assistant general manager down at Kennedy Space Center at the Visitors Complex. So if you've ever been to Disney and you have the day to go get some education, kind of go down to the Space Center and kind of get that education of space and really kind of telling those stories that we get. And that was a great experience that I had there.
I mean, the idea of a rocket working at NASA just seems to go two hand in hand. I'll be honest, like just an art was down there. Maybe
I would tell people, I went from race cars to rocket ships. It was kind of the same. So
I love that. Maybe we talked a little bit about your career, but even taking a step back, I mean, growing up, what did that look like, and how did that influence you to end up at the University of Toledo?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up, East Central Ohio, about 90 miles east of Columbus, tiny little town, 2,500 people. I played sports, growing up, thought it was great, started playing volleyball. That was the time that Karch Karai and UCLA and, the men's team was, that was the thing. Beach volleyball had just kind of like started to catch on back then, and kind of worshiped those players, thought they were great, and said, I'm going to do that someday. That's what I want to do. So, for me, I was lucky enough to be a part of a junior Olympic volleyball team, close to my region. It was just a different time and date back then. You didn't have the social media accounts that you do today. You had to really rely on, getting into the junior Olympic team so that the college coaches could actually come and see you play, because, they were going to come to my teeny little town to watch us play. So you really had to work really hard and, be lucky enough to get on one of those teams if you really wanted to play college sports. I think the trying to get your name out there it was just a whole different. I think it was a little harder than it is today. But I was lucky enough to get noticed. I'm 6'2", so I was tall back then. I feel like I'm short today compared to the girls that are playing. But it was great, and one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to play at Bowling Green so bad. That's exactly where I wanted to go. They had a sports management program, but at the time they, didn't need that middle hitter. So, I was recruited by Toledo, but I tell you what, I stepped on campus and fell in love with it. It just felt like home as soon as I got there. And it still feels like home. It's a great
Well, I personally think you made a great decision. I'm glad that it worked out.
I do.
What was your fondest memory of being a Rocket?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. For us, again, like I said, we had, it was just a kind of tumultuous time because, we had our coach for 2 years. We had to change a coach, in the middle of my career. For us, I enjoyed playing there, but it was more of that learning of how to go through those difficult times, right? I mean, it wasn't easy. And I think having the ability to kind of work through that collectively as a group, as a team, and still, be semi-successful, with that. I think that takes a lot. And like I said, I have leaned on that so much, throughout my working career, because things don't go always as they seem. And you have to learn how to pivot and kind of, keep that morale up and keep people excited about what you're trying to do, even through the hard times. So I tell you, that's what I've learned, and I don't regret a day of it. I think it's great. I look back on it very fondly.
As you think about that experience, both in the classroom, on the court, or part of that, and talked a little bit about just going through adversity and coming on the other side. I mean, what other life lessons or things that you experienced during your career do you reflect on that experience and say, okay, that started, or I really sharpened that skill set at the University of Toledo?
Yeah, I think it's just taking a look at, it's a what do I want to say? It's dealing with the adversity of change. I think is one of the major things that I've learned. I have found out through my career, people don't like change. And how do change is one constant that there's always going to be change. That's the constant that there is. And then how do you make people feel comfortable with that change? And I think that's a skill that I definitely, learned at Toledo. Going through that, there was such a huge amount of change for us all the time. And how do you still, again, be collectively as a team, and how do you keep that momentum moving forward, right? And how do you do that in the business side too? Because there's always change. And then how do you keep your staff moving forward? How do you keep everybody positive? Whether it's changed because of economic downturns, when you're talking about, I've been in sports and events, and people are using discretionary income, right, to come to our events. So if there's an economic downturn, that's going to cause a change, right, into how you're, who's coming to the events, how many ticket sales you'd be doing. So those type of things, and how do you change and pivot and move forward, I think is definitely something that, I look back on my career having to be able to do that. And how do you do that in the business world?
And I think in preparation of this, we had some brief conversations, but you're facing a serious health challenge right now. How are you doing?
Yeah, it's been an interesting year. So I've got stage 4 ovarian carcinoma sarcoma. It's not, it's untreatable with chemo at the moment. It's pretty terminal, is kind of what we're looking at. I'm in a clinical trial right now, so just trying to uh, keep it at bay as long as we possibly can. But I will say it's really given me a different perspective this past year, kind of looking at my career, looking at my life, what type of, if I have any regrets, um, being able to do things that maybe I was going to put off for a few years to get those done. But I'm sad about it. I'm kind of mad about it, but at the same time, I'm grateful and thankful for it because, again, it's kind of giving me a freedom that maybe I wouldn't have had. And to be able to kind of make sure you say those things to the people that mean something to you every day. You don't leave anything, unturned, kind of thing. The time's going to come at some point. You just don't know when, that you kind of know what it's, how it's going to go. So you really kind of, instead of, but I would say, you have your time, but I live every day like it's a new day. And I get up in the morning and it's a new day. And how do I make the most of today? And I tell you, I wish I knew that then. Um, I wish I knew those things a year ago and was like that a year ago. Um, and I will say most of my days were pretty happy and pretty fulfilling. So, we're getting through it.
I'm blown away by your strength, your grace, your poise in facing that challenge, and just the way you carry yourself, or even just your willingness to not only do this but share that on camera and those words of advice. And I'd heed all of us to listen to your words of advice on that perspective and live each day to its fullest and embrace this world around you. And when people say, "Well, how are you doing?" and I talk about living the dream, well, I think I'm joking or tongue in cheek, but all of us have this opportunity and the ability to really embrace opportunities around us and live each day like it might be your last. And I just can't thank you enough for your willingness to share, be here today.
Yeah. It was one of those things that I'm very open about. I've been open about it kind of since the beginning of all of this. Happened almost a year ago to the day. So I'm just like I said, I'm just thankful for each and every day that I can be here and be with my family. And I hope there's more. And I'm thankful for the doctors and everything that they've been able to do for me. And it's one of those things that, as the doctor said, you won the worst lottery that you could win. And so it's just nothing that you could have done. It's just one of those things in life that happens. And but I think the way to get through it is just to embrace it and kind of keep moving forward. That's all you can do.
We obviously you played the sport of volleyball and were very successful. We've probably made volleyball a renewed focus around here. I think it's the fastest growing sport in the country, and we've got a brand new head coach this year. He's really added a lot of energy to the program. If you were talking to one of our young ladies on the volleyball team right now, what words of advice would you give them?
Oh man, just enjoy every single day that you have at college. I mean, my son's a junior at Miami, Ohio this year. I'm vicariously living through him. I don't think I realized when I was going through school how good I had it at the time. Just enjoy everything that you're doing every single day. And I think, as I've said to young women before, in the sport, is take all the other things, again, like you said, that you're learning through sport, because you're going to use those throughout your life. You're going to use it. You're going to learn how to have conflict management, right? You're going to learn how to give praise. You're going to learn how to, give criticism and receive that. And you're going to have to do that in your, in your business career, right? Throughout your life. I think sport is such a correlation, with business, whether it's, with events and entertainment or whatever you're doing. I really think there's so much to take from it. There's so much to learn. It's just not the sport itself, which is great. And I think we all enjoy playing. And, mind you, if I could stuff block somebody today, I would love it. But, it feels so good. But, I think just take those things with you because they will serve you well later.
Well, as somebody that's never stuffed blocked or dunked a basketball, I can only imagine what that feeling feels like. But just really appreciate you joining us for today. I think you're a testament to what it means to be a Rocket and your resilience, but also your impact on our industry, my industry, within the sports and entertainment business area is certainly something to be widely respected. And you carving your own path and doing it your way, I think something all Rockets can look upon. So really appreciate you joining us today.
Absolutely. No problem. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, this is another episode of Manufactured in the Glass City. Excited to see you again soon. Go Rockets.